I just got back from 9 days in Antarctica. It was freaking incredible, truly the trip of a lifetime. And I got asked a ton of questions. How do you get there? What do you do when you're there? Where do you stay? Are there hotels in Antarctica? How much does it cost? So here's breaking down everything that goes down when you visit the seventh continent. I'm gonna talk about the wildlife, from the penguins to the seals to the whales. I wanna give an inside look at the ship too, because that's where you spend most of your time. Is it nice? What are the people like? The crew and the passengers? Is the food good? What do you do in your downtime? We're gonna cover it all. I went with Quark Expeditions on the World Explorer ship. When you travel to Antarctica, you have to travel through one of these cruise companies. There's no place to actually stay in Antarctica. So let's start at the beginning. You begin in Ushuaia, Argentina, which is a 3-hour flight from Buenos Aires, which was a 10-hour flight from New York, where I came from. And once I land in Ushuaia, this is basically where the beginning of my trip starts. The tour company Quark picks me up from the airport. They take me to a hotel where I stay for one night and we have an orientation there. And then it's the next day around 4 p.m. is when we get on the ship. So the first real task of this journey is sailing the dreaded Drake Passage. Is it as bad as they say? It was definitely rocky. The waves for us on the way down were about 3.5 meters high. We asked the crew how this compares to normal crossings and they said it was kind of in the middle. And this crossing takes 1.5 to 2 days on the ship. And it wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. For medication, I do recommend the scopolamine patch, which you put behind your ear. That worked better for me than just Dramamine or meclizine, but also heads up, the patch did make me feel a little high, so heads up on that. So anyway, this journey takes you about 2 days, and then you get through the South Shetland Islands, and then your trip is basically in this area right here, and you stay down here for about 4 days, and then you come back and you go back through the Drake Passage. So what does an average day look like when you wake up in Antarctica? What do you do? The wake up call is between 7 and 7:30, and then you go get breakfast, which is usually between 7:30 and 9. And breakfast was literally anything you could want. Bacon, eggs, toast, yogurt, fruit. You can order French toast, pancakes, omelets, as much coffee as you want, as much juice. All the food was great. So then after breakfast, you get ready for your first Zodiac cruise. And these Zodiac cruises are the whole reason you're doing this trip in the first place. So the way this goes is you go down to the mud room and you get your muck boots on and your parka and a life jacket. And they provide all this, and you get to keep the parka at the end of the trip, which is awesome. So you get all that on, and then they have to scan you out because they're going to scan you back in when you return. And then you step through this like boot cleaning thing, which you have to do every time you get off and on the ship. This thing fits about 10 passengers and 1 crew member, 1 guide. And y'all, these guides are incredible. They are absolute experts on everything Antarctica. They'll tell you all about the climate, the wildlife, the ice sheets, the history of exploration there. You can ask them anything. They've got all the answers. And also pretty much each guide has a specialty. Like one person is a glaciologist, marine biologist, ornithologist. So they all kind of have different fun facts that they're excited to share with you. So now on the Zodiac boats, you're doing either a landing or a cruise. For landing, you actually get to walk on the continent, or sometimes it's an island. And there are rules to this. You have to stay in the marked area, which is essentially just one defined path. You have to stay a couple meters away from wildlife at all times. That includes if a penguin starts to walk towards you, you have to back up. And they don't allow more than 100 people on the continent at any time. This was a great way to get a closer look at the penguins, to see their colonies and how they operate. We saw a bunch of babies, chicks, I think. The views from these little hikes you do up the hills are insane. This was just really special. It was awesome. And then if you don't do a landing, you do a cruise where you stay on the Zodiac the whole time, but you can get up close to icebergs, and then you can see the seals really well. They're just chilling there. You can see the penguins swimming, and then you're always on the lookout for whales. So let's dive into the wildlife. For the penguins, there are 3 main kinds we saw. The Gen 2 penguins, these guys have orange beaks and feet. The chin strap penguins, they've got a little chin strap. And the Adelie penguins. These have all black heads and they're a little smaller. I could watch penguins all day long. They are hilarious. They like to collect rocks. They're good swimmers, but they're actually pretty clumsy on land. Like they slip, they bump into each other. Just endless entertainment watching these guys. Okay, and then we have the seals, which we also saw 3 main species. The leopard seal, the Weddell seals, and the crab-eater seals. Crab-eater seals crave physical touch, which is why they were all bunched together here. And leopard seals have resting smile face, but they can still rip your leg off. And then we have the whales, which we mainly saw humpbacks, but we also did see some orcas off in the distance one day. We saw whales every single day, multiple times a day. It's not like a trip you go on and think, oh, I hope we see whales in Antarctica. We saw whales aplenty. There was no shortage of whales.
Great. Yeah.
So this is what goes down on the Zodiac cruises, and you do this twice a day for 4 days. We saw a lot. So some of the other excursions offered, there was a paddle excursion, which is kind of like kayaking, but it's just like a blow up kayak. Pro tip, sit in the front, the person in the back has to do most of the work. There was also stand-up paddleboard, and there was also camping, where you camp out on the continent overnight in a sleeping bag, no tent, but unfortunately they had to cancel this because the weather was really bad. Oh yeah, and one of the coolest things, the polar plunge.
All right, let's see a lap. Let's see a lap. Come on. Woo! Look at that. Yeah.
Polar plunge.
Nice job, guys.
100 of the 162 people on our ship did this, so I think that was pretty good. What else goes down on the boat, you might ask? Actually, a lot. The meals are fantastic, and there's so many options to choose from at every single meal. All of it was delicious. We spent a lot of downtime at the observation deck, which has 270-degree views of the bow of the boat. Played a lot of games up there. There's also lectures a couple times a day, which you can attend if you want. They're hosted by the expedition crew that were the same guides on your Zodiac boats. And sometimes these are super academic, you know, they're about climate change, about the penguins, but other times they were fun and light. And this guy who was the ornithologist on the ship showed us how he bike packed through Japan for 10 days and then showed all the birds that he saw on the trip. There's a sauna, which we used a few times. There's a gym, which I used 0 times. We did use a hot tub a good amount, especially after dinner. We'd go hang out here. We could have drinks out here. This video was taken at 11:30 p.m. Oh yeah, it doesn't really get dark there since we're there in the summertime, so stay out on the decks as late as you want. For those interested in the weather, honestly, it was pretty nice. It hovered around 35 degrees Fahrenheit the whole time. When it was sunny, it felt great. When it was overcast and you're on the Zodiac boats, you definitely wanted to be covered up. For the 4 days we were down there, the first day it was sunny, clear. Second and third day were overcast, and the fourth day was sunny, clear skies. It was beautiful. So I think that was pretty good. Okay, so the people on the ship. There were 162 guests and 110 crew. About half the guests were from the United States, and then Canada, UK, Australia. I would say the most common age group on the ship was 50 to 60-year-olds. Lots of married couples, just a couple families, some mother-daughter, mother-son, father-son duos. I think there were less than 10 people that were traveling solo. I went with my cousin Elliot. All right, how much did it cost? I went with Quark Expeditions on the World Explorer ship, and we went for a 9-day voyage, and the cost included everything for that 9 days. Does not include flights to and from Ushuaia. I shared a room with my cousin Elliot. It was honestly really nice, but it was like the lowest offering, and cost per person was $16,116. Add in the international flights, plus I spent a couple days in Buenos Aires before, and then bought some clothes and gear for the trip. All in, it was around 20K. This was absolutely the trip of a lifetime. I would recommend this 100 out of 100 times, especially with Quark. They were fantastic. The crew and the expedition team were super knowledgeable, really friendly. They made the trip so much better than I could have imagined it to be. And I also just made a lot of friends on the boat, which I wasn't expecting, and that made the trip really amazing. All right, so that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for watching. I tried to cover most of it, but I know I left some stuff out, so please feel free to ask any questions and I'll answer them in the comments. All right, thanks again. Peace.